Hey there, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our Week 5 critiques. You're gonna be practically flooded with critiques. They're gonna be coming at you fast and furious. Um, anyway, sorry. Anyway, so today we're gonna be looking at HDR, high dynamic range, and we're gonna just go through, see if you did it right, and how your resulting HDR images look. So we're looking at Crystal's work, at Jared's, at Guillermo's, and at Melissa's. Let's start right off the bat with Crystal's. Alright, so starting off looks pretty good. So your options obviously were to either do a 5 image or a 9 image HDR. I mean, I guess you could do any range within there, but those are sort of the limits of numbers of images that you could do. So, starting off looks pretty good. Basically, you're going to be starting off at somewhere around 2 stops under, and you can either go by half or full stops, or third stops, I guess. So, if you're doing 9 of these, you're going to end up about 2 stops over. And yeah, I mean, this looks pretty much right on, totally correct. And basically the idea is that you're going to do this to the point where you would have, that you would get an image like this where even the brightest highlight has plenty of detail in it. And then an image like this where even the darkest shadow, which is maybe in here, has, again, some detail to it. And the result is an image with a ton of dynamic range. Alright, go ahead and zoom out here, and this looks like from your above set of 9, this looks like this image right here. And then, oh yeah, it says original down here. And then here is her HDR version. It is a little bit flat. I mean, you definitely have the range. You definitely have detail in your darker shadows and detail in your brightest highlights, which happen to be right next to each other here. You definitely have a lot of dynamic range. It's just maybe a little bit on the flat side. It is okay once you have the HDR image to go in and adjust it a little bit if you feel like it needs it. I'm going to look at some of the other versions here as well, because I think the black and white version I thought was... Yeah, I think it's a little bit... Yeah, simply because we don't have this blue color cast that's in this one. That does make it a little bit better. I would say just a hair more just a hair more contrast. But otherwise, this actually looks great. Surprise, surprise, Colin thinks that the black and white image looks great. Not just because of all my years in the black and white darkroom, or because I love black and white photography. I think I just found that the color cast in the last one is sort of, I think because the colors were not monochromatic, but it was a fairly simple color palette in that last one. It sort of added to the flat look of it, whereas this, again, you're sort of getting, because it's reduced more to tones, you're sort of getting a better idea of the separation. And I like this actually quite a bit too. It's like a weird cyanotype slash, not sepia tone. I'm trying to think of what that reminds me of. Oh shoot. Anyway, escapes me, but I do like it's definitely a weird result. Anytime that you have sort of the cyany green snow. But I like that. I do think, though, that this is the best version. So very nice. I think that turned out cool. Nice job, Crystal. And I mean, I really, you do get just like a ton of detail and everything. I mean, just even comparing it to like this, you are getting a lot of. I mean, this is definitely a lot more contrast. You're getting a lot more separation, but you're also again losing detail here. You know, losing some detail in here. That, you know, this version definitely has all those details. It has that range, and it's fairly continuous. Okay, so you're not getting like, you know, again, a lot of the contrast. But I thought that was good. All right, and let's move right on to Jared's images. And let's see. Scroll back at the top here, but we have a pug. How many pugs? I'm sorry. Don't want to get. I feel like I'm getting all girly all of a sudden because we have a puppy in here. All right, so so yeah, it looks like you have a pretty good range here. Although I gotta say, sorry, get all that. Even your brightest, what would essentially be your 2 stops over, is pretty much right on. Now this happens to some people where they start at a pretty, basically at a normal exposure, at a correct exposure, you might say, and then they start there, and then they either end up with something that goes like super dark, like more than 2 stops under, or super light, depending on which direction they are bracketing in. When really what you want to do is start 2 stops under, and you know, bracket until you get to 2 stops over. Now, Jared, was this one of the ones from above, or is this your HDR image? I mean, it has a really good tonal range, but this kind of threw me off that you have the 1/10 of a second at f11. I was up here before looking at like, then it is say 1/10 of a second on them. I guess this does, but that doesn't look like that. You do, there's like some really interesting details in here. Lots of, I guess, I'm not going to let that throw me off because this does look like an HDR image. You definitely do have a good range here. I'm going to get the your split tone image. A very interesting, bizarre image. I do like this. Something about these folds right here. Like there's some really cool sort of range within the tones and sort of values. You get like a lot of detail in there. Let me see. I mean, you're kind of getting it in all of them, but not to the extent. I don't know what it is about that, but it just looks. It's like really well defined and has a very, I guess, sort of pleasing tone in there. Hopefully, you guys can see that. What I'm pointing at there. But yeah, I thought that turned out really good. And it's not just because I like puppy dogs. Alright, that was very silly. But the point is, yeah, good tonal range, nice detail. I would caution to be a little bit more careful about stuff like this coming in, but otherwise, oh, let me get a little eye. This is the sort of thing too, like, you don't necessarily see that eye right away. It's totally okay to come in and like just sort of kind of, if you were to lighten up sort of the white part of the dog's eye, it would create a little bit more visual contrast that would really make that, like, you know, just right off the bat pop. It's a detail that you see. But again, I did see it, so it can't be terrible. You know, it's just something like you know, a little right there, a little right there would sort of just make that more instantly visible. But again, another very nice job on this, Mr. Jared. All right, up next, Guillermo, and let's see here what you got. Oh yeah, Snoopy playing the piano. I remember this now. So again, dynamic range, right? You start with something underexposed, and yeah, I'd say it's a good. It's maybe not quite 2 stops under, because like I feel like right in between these two is probably your ideal. It's maybe like stop and a half stop, under, half stop over, 1.5 over, and then 2.5 over, because you're really, I mean that's really great. But man, pretty close, pretty right on. And it could be too that just the amount of white here on Snoopy maybe threw off your initial meter. I don't know. I mean, Snoopy does look, he looks a little bright in that one. But let's see overall. Wow, that I like that. But that's like super saturated color. Although I like that. I mean, it feels appropriate to this thing. That's like very, sort of bright and poppy. Like kind of a pop culture thing that I think suits that pretty well. Come in here. Interesting. And kind of in the shift to black and white, it sort of had like a little bit. I think the computer had a little bit of trouble, making a smooth transition. That you get a little bit of blockiness there. Which you don't really see in this one. Oh, gold tone. Sounds like something from the 60s, like a Martha and the Vandells with their super gold tone hit. It's getting very random today, you guys. I'm sorry. I think that's definitely the best version. Now, I think because the whole thing is just slightly bright, you're kind of losing it a little bit in here. But yeah, I do like that bright, poppy, saturated color. I think that's really pretty cool. Alright, and then last but not least, we have Melissa's work. And I'm going to just zoom out here on this. Alright, so starting, I'd say that's pretty close to 2 stops under. We're moving along here. Okay, and then you did she did the 5 stop, okay. And I don't know if I would say that your final image is 2 stops over, but again, that might be because of the snow. Actually, your final shot looks, I would say your second to last shot is more or less the correct exposure overall. Let's see how that affected your final image. Yeah, it's okay. So it did come out just a little bit dark here. Zoom out. Yeah, and I think, again, I don't know if that's an issue of starting at the correct exposure and bracketing from there, going down, or if that's more of a thing where, I mean, this image has a ton of white in it. If you don't meter it fairly carefully, you're going to get something that, where you're, especially if you're using your, if you're metering through the lens, it's going to try and average everything out. It expects everything basically to be, the sort of middle tonal and middle color range. So if you started, since we're looking at this, you assume that you started here. It's probably more in between here and here is the correct image, because all these things are more or less white. So I think that maybe threw you off overall. So you have the HDR, black and white. Ooh, that's kind of cool. Surrealistic. Now this looks like more like the effect of a lot of HDR images that you see out there. They sort of have these weird kind of glowing things going on. That almost looks like if you had like an HDR filter on your, like within Photoshop or something that you were using, or Lightroom, where you took a regular image and made it look HDR. That's, I think, sort of what that effect is. I do like the image, although For some reason, at first I thought this was some kind of chair. Like this looked like the back to like a chaise lounge kind of chair. But I see that that's actually a bucket in front of the fence. Yeah, not bad. I think it's funny because your surrealistic HDR looks like the HDR effect just dialed up a little bit. But actually it's kind of a fairly interesting result that you got. A lot of contrast and so these weird glowing edges. Yeah. Overall, pretty interesting. Alright guys, so let me know that you watched this entire video. I would like you to respond with the words sewing machine somewhere in your response. Just because sewing machine. I don't know. What do I know? Anyway, you'll probably see, everyone here will probably see another video from me for the second assignment be posted fairly shortly after you see this one. So, I'll see you again real soon.